Ready.
Good evening. Welcome, everybody. We're glad to have you here. I'm KJ Burley, member of the board of directors of West Virginia Wellness Incorporated. And we like to educate folks about complementary, holistic, alternative, and integrative medicine. One of the ways we do that is through these life lectures. This evening, we're featuring Dr. Alicia Rocco. She's a naturopathic doctor. She's going to talk about intuitive counseling. Alicia has been a naturopathic doctor for more than 40 years. She's trained in quantum physics, intuitive counseling, hypnotherapy, iridology, which I find fascinating, tree essence making, and herbology. She is a formulator for tree essences and rainforest herbs infused with tree essences for physical, emotional, and spiritual healing. And she's now kind of semi-retired, but she still continues to work, and she wants to continue to formulate products for natural options and also do person-to-person counseling. So this evening, she's going to talk to us about intuitive counseling. The heart speaks and knows what's best, but do you know how to listen to it? All of us can use someone to hear with that sixth sense of knowing to help us find the what and when and where answers. So this kind of counseling, Alicia says, is not about telling you what, when, and where, but showing you how to use your own sense of knowing to find the answers that are right for you. And you will never find this in a textbook. So Alicia, without further ado, thank you for being here this evening.
No, thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. All right, we're going to get started with just a little bit of history about me. In my early 20s, I had been pronounced dead at a nearby hospital, had a life-death experience. So one of the things that people often say, well, you have all that intuition because you had that life-death experience. And that's not really a true statement. Having a life-death experience kind of does put you in a place where you have to wonder about things because you wonder how you got there, how you got back. And so therefore it makes you more inquisitive. But as far as having intuition, we all have it. We're born with it. It's a gift. We are giving free will when we're at birth. We make our own decisions after we're adults. You can see how it all falls into place. So what I want to talk about is through the 50 years I've been taking care of clients, some of the stories that I have seen and heard that have been just absolutely amazing stories for me, that has shown beyond a shadow of a doubt about how intuition works. So, you get up in the morning, you're doing your usual routine and things come along and something gets in your way and you are already running late for work. Now, most people who are running late for work are trying to hurry it along so they can be on time instead of relax and stop the time. So we've learned how to do things when we use our intuition and our free will and choice to be able to do things and be there and have that happen for you. So to say the least, I've learned how to actually somewhat stop time when I have certain things that I need to get done and I need just a little more time. It's been kind of fun, but that's a small thing compared to the things that can save your life. And so one of the things I'm going to share with you now sounds like maybe it's a really made up story, but it's not. My husband and I were about to fly somewhere and we had arrived an hour early. And basically I said, you know what, I'm going to sit here and meditate for a while if you don't care, honey. I said, there's nobody sitting here in all the chairs, so it's nice and quiet and I can do that. And he said, okay, that's fine. He said, and I said, now remember, don't touch me because then I jump when I'm in meditation. He said, yeah, I know. So lo and behold, I went into very deep meditation. While I was sitting there, the room filled up. And it filled up with a lot of children. They were running around me and they were touching me. And my husband was really concerned about that, but I never moved. And then all of a sudden, I come out of my meditation and he said to me, did you feel those kids touching you? And I said, no. And he said, where were you? And I said, well, I was probably very deep into where I was at because I was inquisitive about some decisions that I need to make. And he said, and I said, and I have made one and I need to excuse myself for a minute and I'll be right back. Well, lo and behold, the place was packed with people. And I walked up to the lady taking the tickets and I asked her if there was another plane leaving after this one for the same place we were going. And she said, yes, there is. Why? And I said, well, I need to have my husband and I move to that plane. She said, why? I said, if I knew why, I would tell you, but I don't know why. I said, but something inside of me is saying, and you can call it my intuition, you can call it my knowing. It has all kinds of terms to it. I said, is saying, this is not time to go. I need to wait another hour. So she was very irritated with me, to say the least. She looked for seats and she found 2 seats, but we couldn't sit together. And I said, well, that's fine. I said, I will just go ahead and, wherever you put us, we've been married a while. We don't need to sit next to each other. So she let us get on the next plane. Everybody got on and we got to where we were going and we were in the hotel. And usually I'm putting his clothes away and my clothes away and, doing my thing, getting us ready. We were going to a conference and he immediately turns television on. Was his favorite thing. He turned it on and he started screaming for me. And I said, what's the matter? And he said, that plane we were going to get on crashed. Did you know that? And I said, what do you mean did I know that? I didn't know that plane was going to crash. He said, well, what did you know? What made you get on another plane? And I said, my knowing said it was not time for us to be here. And it was strong inside of me, wait another hour. Now we could easily say that, well, we were looked at from the universe and I was saved and he was saved. Or we could easily also say that there's a purpose for us to be here on the earth. This intuition that I have that's strong. Sometimes I listen to it and it keeps me safe. We could say that, but it also can put you in a position where you would get on a plane that was going to crash. And it's time for you to leave this earth. So you need to understand that your intuition can work both ways. So how do you separate that? Keep yourself safe, so to speak. There's really no way. So you need to understand that everything that you live from a spiritual perspective inside of you in the aspect of intuition is a knowing that you have. You're to be at a certain place, a certain time, meet a certain person, do a certain thing. And it is all part of the plan, of your plan that you created before you ever got here, probably. So, and with that, the spirit world has a tendency to say, okay, if this is your choice. And so we have to look at that. So most people would say, well, then I don't think I want to have any intuition because I don't want to know when I'm coming, when I'm going, or what's happening to me. But it's the small little things that you can know about yourself. For instance, someone said to me, I would like for you to read my eyes in iridology. And I said, why? And she said, well, my mother had cancer and I just know she died. And I just know I'm going to get cancer. I know that's how I'm going to die. And I said, well, honey, then you don't want me to read your eyes. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you create that cancer and die that way. And she looked at me really funny. Now, not every counselor will tell you that. But I said, you need to hear what you're saying. And she said, oh my gosh, I'm creating my own cancer, aren't I? And I said, yeah, you're really talking about it and you want it. You're calling it to yourself is what you're doing. And she said, well, my intuition said I should die the way my mother died. I said, why would it tell you that? And she said, I don't know. Well, yes, I do know, because I was so devastated when she died. I felt I needed to die for her. So you can see how she created that for herself. A lot of health issues, when people come in to see me, I will talk to them a lot about what they think, what they believe, their background, whether it be, even what their religious background might be, because that'll interject as to what their belief and the way in which they're coming to this place that they're at. So whenever I talk to people about their intuition, I will say to them, what is your heart saying to you? What is it really telling you that you should do here? And usually they'll look at me and say, well, that's what I'm paying you for. I came here for you to tell me. I'm not here to tell you. You already know. All I'm trying to do is bring to the surface what you know. And this knowing, everybody has. Everybody. We're all gifted with it. It's whether we use it or not. It can be used good and it can be used bad. So you have to be very careful with what you're doing with your gifts. So the one thing you've got to remember is that no matter what happens to you, good, bad, or indifferent in this world, you are a part of that creation of that. So don't chastise yourself for it if it was bad. Just say, okay, was I really listening to what I should or should not be doing? And is this for my own good to learn and to know? So folks come to see me because they're sick or they want to not be sick. They want to stay very healthy. And so for 40 some years, I looked at every way to help them in every way, shape, or form, whether it be anything from the natural way. And what I learned through all of that time, sometimes the heart just needs to talk. And when someone's talking to me and they're telling me their story, I will ask them questions back to clarify something. And it's suddenly their intuition, you can just see it kind of kick in and they'll go, well, that's not right. That's not really what I think. Why do I say that? And so we have this rhetoric that we live in, this world of terms and words and things in the way in which we say them. And we become to believe them after a while, wholeheartedly, just like the lady believed she would die of cancer. So we have to understand that our intuition is there for us. It is a gift, and we might see it good, bad, or indifferent, but most of the time, it can save your life, believe it or not. And it can also save you a lot of money. It can save you a heartache. It can save you lots of things. And just recently, I just had something happen to me that was very interesting. All the folks around me didn't trust this certain person and relayed that to me. And I thought, but they don't seem like they're mistrusting. And sure enough, it came out that they were. And so, of course, everybody was having a really good time with me going, see, our intuition was right and yours was wrong. And we laughed about it. And I said, well, I don't know that mine was wrong. I said, and I don't know that yours was right, although we can see that plainly by what happened. But what we do know is that person has a heart that they were reaching out, and they were going in the wrong direction with it. And what I saw was the heart, and what you saw was the direction they were going. He said, well, that's kind of an interesting way to look at it. But I said, that's how intuition can work. One can see it one way and one can see it another way. So how do you trust your intuition? How do you know when you should see a doctor? How do you know when you should get a divorce? How do you know when you should kick the kids out of the house? Whatever the case may be. That strong inner feeling that comes up inside of you, not in anger, not in any kind of hatred, irrational thought, but that very strong feeling comes up and says, yes, or it says no. It's that simple. We make it really hard. Now, one of the things that I do, if I have a huge decision I need to make, I find the right time of day, which is always for me very early in the morning, like 6 o'clock. And I will get up, I'll have a cup of coffee, I'll sit down in my chair and I'll say, I need to make this decision, right or wrong, I need to make it. And I need to have my intuition be involved in this, my heart knowing about how I feel about it. And so again, one more time, I will make a decision, whether it goes against the grain of everybody around me or whatever. Does it always come out great? No. Does it always come out good? No. But I made it, and it makes me emotionally and spiritually strong because I have the capability of trusting myself. And that's what it comes down to. How much do you trust yourself? We listen to, well, today especially, we can listen to the news and we can hear all about COVID and what's going on in the government and so forth. It's who do you believe and who do you not believe and who do you trust and who do you not trust? I don't listen to hardly any of that. I know what's going on around me. I make sure I do know that. But other than that, I don't listen to it. I listen to me and what I need to do. And I had an incident where we had people arguing over whether you should have the COVID vaccine or not. And I never said anything. And I was in a group of very strong-minded people that really felt the vaccine was very, very important, et cetera, so forth. And not one person in that group asked me how I felt about that vaccine. And I just sat there and listened the whole entire time, which I found to be very interesting, especially since they knew I was a naturopathic doctor. Now, would they consider that, oh, well, she don't believe in it, or, oh, well, she does believe in it? No, they weren't going to ask, because their intuition said that they were afraid to ask, literally, is what happened. So I sat very quietly and just listened to everybody's pros and cons on it. So the interesting thing with intuition, when you're healing yourself, when you're about a problem, you've got your own health issue, your own emotional issue going on in your life, you find that 6 o'clock time where you sit and you become very still. Now, when I mean still, I don't mean you're meditating. I mean, you sit perfectly still. You can feel your breath work, and breath work should always come from the belly up, not from the chest up. You do some relaxing breaths, you do some energy building breaths, and you sit real still. Not many of us have the capability of sitting perfectly still. If you sit perfectly still and relay a question in your heart and your mind about something that you need to make a decision, by the time you're done, you will have an answer. It's that easy. But you have to sit still, be still, and know that I am. So one of the things I learned about intuition is not to ask or tell people, well, you have this or you have that, you can do this, you can do that. And I did a lot of that in that 40 some years of practicing. But what I say is, these are some possibilities. Have you thought about this? Or have you considered this? And a lot of times they'll come back and say, oh, I've never thought about that. Just like the lady with the cancer. I'm really talking myself into that, aren't I? But she never hurt herself. So all I did was relay it back to her, is what I did. Intuition lies inside of you. You're using it every minute of the day, 24/7, even when you're sleeping, in your dreams. It's there. Your dreams are telling you things. Your children can tell you things. Everybody around you, your animals, they can tell you things. It's amazing how you can pick up off of any energy whatsoever and be very intuitive with it as to what you should or should not do within a split second. Now, how many of us can actually say that we can make a decision in a split second? So, but you can, if you truly learn to use this gift. This is not a gift because I had a life-death experience. This is a gift we all have. We're so busy about the day that we don't take that time to sit still, even if it's for 2 minutes. I give it more than that. I give it about 15 minutes in the morning. And I sit perfectly still and I ask for clarification on something I need for the day, a direction I might need to go, et cetera, so forth. Happens to me all the time. And I use this on my daily practice, is what I do. And I will get calls from people. Today, I was offered a full-time job. I was like, well, that wasn't in my intuition today. It wasn't something I was looking for, but that's okay. There's a reason that came. And, I still look at that to see, well, okay, why is that there? Why was that brought to the surface? I had a friend, and she was going down the road and she got a flat tire, and she was upset because she was going to be late where she was going. She was so mad. She was livid. She called me on the phone. She said, I got a flat tire and I have a spare tire. I said, well, do you have AAA? No, I don't have that either. I said, well, let me see if I can get a hold of my brother. Well, I'll see if I can send him down there. And she says, I'm going to be late. I said, take it easy. Sit in your car, be still, and just listen to what your intuition is telling you about this flat tire you have. And so she called me back about 2 minutes later and she said, okay, send your brother. I'll get my tire changed. She said, I'm going to be late. It's okay. I said, why is that? She said, I don't know. There's just this strong feeling that I needed not to be down the road at the time I was going to be down that road if that tire had been there. And I said, okay. So she got the tire changed, went on down the road, and sure enough, there was an accident. And sure enough, she would have been in that accident. Sure enough, it's a possibility she might not have been on the earth. So what you have to know is that her intuition said, relax, sit still, it's okay. You still have service to spirit to do, and you have work to do. She said, I heard those words and I thought, well, yeah, I'm trying to get to work. But she said, I realized then that it wasn't the work they were talking about, or what I was hearing from wherever you could consider your intuition to come into. So intuitive counseling is not just a thing of sitting there and going, well, you could take this herb, or you could do this essence, or you could do this, or you could get your blood work done, and we could do this and this and this. It's also listening to everything going on in that room, including what you're saying, what they're saying, what's coming across, what's not coming across, pointing it out, showing it, sharing it, and then all of a sudden they have an aha moment. It's amazing how many people I've seen have aha moments right in the office, and that lady was one of them. So to me, intuition is about finding that deep part inside of you that truly believes you're all that you should be in the very moment you're in, doing what you should be doing in the very moment you're in. And if you're supposed to be off of this earth, that's okay too. So in the future, I realize that we are going to all have to come to terms with death in a different way. We've really run a gap of the way in which we see death as. Death can be and is a beautiful thing. If you've lost someone, you're probably not feeling that right now. But to be honest with you, even the Bible talks about crying at birth and celebrating at death. So I will ask myself, so is this really being alive in this body, or is this being dead in this body? And then if I leave this body, am I alive? And so those are all those questions that still unanswered, still looking for those answers, a lot of us. So when we look at that and we say, okay, so intuition says, trust what you feel, trust what you hear. And I don't mean hearing with your ears. Trust what your heart says and speaks. If we could do more of that in our daily life, whether it be getting to work, sharing coffee with somebody, doing whatever we do throughout the day, we would live a happier, much, much happier life than what we're living right now. We go about running about trying to make all ends meet, get to where we're going, get everything done we're to get in a day, and the day flies by and we wonder what we got done. So if you just take those few minutes in the morning, you're going to find that you're going to get directed and guided sometimes different paths than what you would normally take. For instance, I have a drive path that I go from this town to the next town. One day I got in the truck and it said, let's not go that way. Just don't go that way. And so I didn't go that way. And I thought, well, we could say, am I going another way to die, or am I going another way to live? And that day I was going another way to live. So it could have been a very bad thing for the situation and the way in which I was going down that path and that road. Listening to that is hard. So I think I'm going to open it up to questions, because I've said a lot and there's a lot more things you can connect to, but I think by asking questions, we will be able to clarify. Anybody?
So Alicia, it sounds like a primary step is to quiet your mind. And to
Nope,
sit.
not your mind. Remember this, you quiet the entire physical body. That's the first thing. You hold it extremely still,
Okay.
perfectly still. If you have a question because you're trying to make a decision, at that point, you formulate that in your mind. But you clear that mind totally, 100% by holding the body extremely still. You know, we're 360. If you stand with your arms out, you're 360. That's your energy field. And so you spin inside the earth the same way in a vortex, like in a figure 8. So you have to take time for that to settle into spinning around you. And then once you have it clarified and clear, then the mind can ask the question, and then it will spin within that clear field that you've made by holding perfectly still. I will tell you, learning to hold perfectly still was probably one of the hardest things I ever had to do. And when, you know, I'm sitting here talking with my hands, my feet are fidgety, you know, those kinds of things. We don't know how to just sit and breathe. We don't know how to do that. When you start practicing that, you will be amazed at the things that will come in and be so clear, so quick. And you've probably been pondering on them for weeks, maybe, you know. So clear the mind, empty it. That's what I call it. Get yourself in neutral. And, you know, if you hear the humming like you do of a car in neutral or something like that, that's perfectly fine. But you don't move your body. Keep your body perfectly, perfectly still. And that's hard to do.
Requires a
You
lot.
learn.
And that takes some practice, I imagine.
It does. It
Yeah.
does. Meditation was a start for me into getting more still. Quantum physics proved to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that we have to spin within our own vortex to be able to pull up our intuition. And that vortex runs the same way that the earth spins inside of the universe. So in order to do that, though, you have to be the center of it, and you have to hold real still. Our bodies, if you notice, none of us have the capability of really holding still. From the time we wake up in the morning, we're on the go, and the body's flaring around all over the place. And even in sleep, we're not capable of doing that. We roll around, we toss, you know, and all those things. Emptying the mind is the first thing in a lot of meditation practices. That's the first thing they teach you, is empty the mind. Get rid of everything that's in there. There's nothing for you you need to know. And then because you yourself already knows from an energetic level what you're working on or what you're needing an answer for, you can't find that answer. So then when you empty the mind, get the body perfectly still, the breathing from the belly up, and you don't have to pay much attention to it. Just make sure that you're breathing from belly up instead of chest up. Because babies show us how to breathe. That's the first thing they do when they get here. They breathe from the belly up. And that's how we should be. But we get so into who we are, what we're doing, and all the many facets of things that we become chest breathers.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
I was just wondering, your approach seems to have certain givens, and I guess what I mean by that is encouraging people to rely on their intuition may presuppose a certain degree of good mental health. And I guess and I guess my question is, do you think this approach would apply to anyone, knowing that in some cases, depending on the day or the week and the circumstances, what would be viewed as their intuition may not be as reliable?
Right, I agree. And my daughter has PTSD, and she has learned to do this. And the hardest and most difficult time for her is when she has to make a decision because she can't make one, literally. She has a very difficult time doing that. And she said that she finds that holding still is the hardest thing in the world for her to do. But once she's learned to do that, she learns to start to trust it, and then it's able to move. But she said she can't always hold it. So she's still working at learning how to hold that. And you're absolutely right. You can make some very bad decisions with that intuition, because I told you before, that intuition can be accompanied by things people have told you, things you've heard said, the news, the whatever the case may be, things happening around you. And people with PTSD have a lot of that because a lot of things have happened around them that has created and caused that traumas and so forth that they've had. So it takes them back to those spaces again. So moving from those spaces, it takes a little while to learn how to do this. It's not easy, and it's not one that I can say is just an absolute under no circumstances. And I agree with you 100%. I don't talk to people who are on any kind of medications for mental instability, these kinds of things, because they normally cannot hold still no matter what. That's not a precept that they can do. The kind of things I'm talking to you about is more people that are more into probably natural health, more wanting to be more open, be more in touch with things, trusting things, having trusting problems maybe they may be having, and finding that way to do that. Intuitive counseling is when I'm sitting in the chair and I'm listening to you. I'm listening to you tell me what's going on in your life, but I'm also listening to my still voice that says, that's not what happened. So my question back to you then would be, could you clarify that incident for me? Because I'm not sure I understood exactly what happened there. As they begin to clarify something that you pursue with them, then they come to the aha moment of, well, you know, it wasn't quite like that. So that's their intuition working. You're letting them, showing them how to use that. And instead of beyond that surface thought process of, this is how it is, because this is what I've been told, or this is what I heard, this is what I see. You know yourself when you've been somewhere and you just intuitively have said, I can't help this person. There's just nothing I can do. I've sent clients out of my office and told them, you need somebody better than me. I'm not the person for you. And I literally am truthful with them about it. And I tell them that they have a lot more going on than meets the eye. And I'm intuitively knowing that there's a lot of underlying things going on that they haven't revealed to me. And for instance, they may be on a lot of drugs. They could be on street drugs. And I may intuitively be picking it up. And I might go, I don't believe this is going to be a case I'm going to be able to help you. And I'm honest with them and I tell them that. I've had some really, I could write a book on some of the strange cases I've had through the years. And I've had some, we would call them weird ducks, and searching for help wherever they could find it at. And there's really nobody out there to help them. So then they start turning to people like us in the natural health, because the only thing they want to do in the medical world, a lot of times, is just give them medication, quiet them down so that they're not having anxiety and having a lot of health issues and so forth going on. And it's sad to see that, but they've lost their self along the way. To me, when intuition is not working well within you and you're not capable of holding it, my daughter has a very tough time with that. But she has, on the other hand, she has these highly gifted spiritual things in her dreams, and they tell her a lot, which helps her get through the day. And so I've taught her to use those, and that's been a good thing for her. But a lot of times there's not much we can do, because if we have a person that does need to be medicated and needs more help than we have, we're not capable of doing that. And that's being honest. So the intuition there would not be working for them in the same way. It could take them to using more drugs or more drink or more whatever, and you want to be very, very careful. You have a day by day. If I have a day where I don't feel well, I don't go out of the house. I just don't go out. I make it a rule, just cancel everything, stay home. See if what's going on inside of me is physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. Try to connect with it, see if I can correct it, and how to do that. People that are very susceptible to taking everybody's stuff on. There are people like that. They hurt for everybody. They cry for everybody. They don't have any what I call hardened walls at all whatsoever to differentiate between it not being theirs and belonging to the other person. These people have a very difficult time connecting with any kind of intuition. If you're listening to me, you have intuition, I'm sure, and you do listen to it. It's subtle. You can make it stronger, though. And that's really what this particular talk was about, is how to get into it and to connect to it and be stronger with it, and then use it for the best for yourself. Using it in the counseling world, as far as being an intuitive counselor, I think there's going to come a day where we're going to have a lot more of that kind of counseling going on. But it's going to be related to death, probably most of the time, living and dying. That's where it's going to be at.
Thank you. I have another question, but I want to give someone else a chance if they have any questions.
Go ahead, Elissa.
Well, my question, by the way, Alicia, I'm not a therapist. I'm just a person.
You're
And
allowed to be.
what
It's
I
okay.
know, I'm not making apologies. I'm just explaining. What I
Yeah.
was wondering about too, Alicia, was if you could cite examples of how this approach might apply cross-culturally. For example, are there certain cultures where perhaps it would be more challenging for you to impart your approach or get their buy-in in some way, because some cultures may not be as open to using an individual's intuition as a roadmap?
Mhm. I agree. I believe there is always, in any kind of a religious sect, especially, there is always that apprehension. They tend to, they see their God as they know it, and they tend to relate everything in their life and everything about them to that God as they know it. And I'm not telling you that I don't believe in God. What I'm saying is that these gifts are given to us as we come into this earth to use for the good of the earth. And when we talk about the earth, we're also talking about the people and the animals on it. So we're not just saying that it's brought in, from some religious sect. It's spiritually endowed to us, and we have a right to have it. But there are some people who look outside of their self as God being the only thing you can listen to, and God knows best, and God will tell me. But they don't understand that they are a part of that God. You're made in the image of that God. So therefore, that intuitive part of you is a part of that as well. And so listening to that is key. So I have found, yes, there are, especially in the religious sect, politically, I really have found that there. Intuition is not their thing. That's not something where you cross the paths in politics whatsoever with intuition. Everything is black and white in that stance. There are other things. I think there's a lot of people that don't have a religion per se, don't really have even a political affiliate, and they kind of look at the earth as a stop off place, so to speak, and they move from space to space. They're kind of like nomads in a sense. I've had a few of those in my office, and they see intuition as a 100% part of who they are and what they do. And I found that to be most interesting to talk to them. Now, we can't all be nomads and run around the earth and do what we want and that kind of thing. I realize that. But I find that these people were lost at one time and found at another time, and they found themselves, and they found it through their own intuition. They left everything behind and just sort of became nomads and wander the earth is what they do. So I've seen a lot of cultural type things. We have a tendency to want to believe outside of ourselves instead of in ourselves. And if we are made in the image of God, if you were born and bred, raised Christian, and that was my background, and you have read enough to know that if you're made in that image, then you are like that. So if you are like that, you have possibilities and abilities. It's how you use them, when you use them, and the way in which you use them. I always use them in my counseling sessions, and I use them for my personal self. I never walk up to somebody and say, you better not cross that railroad track because you're going to die. I don't do that. I don't use my intuition that way. I remember when I was first starting in the business, everybody said, wow, you're so psychic. You just seem to pick up on this and pick up on that, and you know this and you know that. And I'm like, I don't know if that's being psychic or if that's just my intuition. It's just a knowing. And that's really what intuition is. It's a knowing. It's a knowing inside yourself. Something's right, something's wrong, something feels good, something feels bad. That's just what it is. And then you have to learn how and do you trust it? How much do you trust it? So when you do that, then you start to learn that, oh, okay, that didn't feel so bad. I trusted that and it came out okay. But then when you trust something and it didn't come out okay, you look at it and you go, okay, But we have all those little sayings that what goes around comes around and things kind of meet themselves. It happens if you just watch it roll. It'll come around and meet itself is what it'll do. And a lot of cultural divides and religious divides, you're going to find that intuition is just not something they use. It's very little. And it's a very powerful gift given to us by the spirit world. I'm amazed that people don't use it, but they don't, and they don't practice it. Meditation, they'll practice. They practice yoga, meditation, all the different things like that. And that can help get you there and get you to that point where you can trust it. So yes, I agree with you about the cultural divides. They're there.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Yes, Alicia, it's KJ. Do you make a distinction? Then it sounds as though you make a distinction between being intuitive and being psychic.
Oh yeah, I do anyway.
How
Being
would you define
psychic,
that?
I think it's when you're psychic, you have the feeling or the knowing that whether they do tarot cards or whatever they do, that something's going to happen or it's going to come out this way. Intuition is basically saying to you, these are possibilities. Should you move left or should you move right? Now it's your decision whether you go left or you go right. I remember one time my son saying to me, my wife went to one of them crazy psychics. And I said, yeah. And he said, she said we were going to have 2 kids and 2 dogs, and 1 dog was going to die. And I said, yeah. And he said, do you believe in that stuff, Mom? And I said, well, that's what she's seeing right now, because that's the path your wife is on. But your wife has free will and choice, and she has her own intuition to make decisions as to whether she goes left or right. So she's traveling this road now, and all of a sudden she goes, I think I'll go left. So now that changes it from 2 kids to 1 kid, or no dogs and maybe 10 dogs. And he started laughing. He thought that was so funny. He said, well, that was quite an explanation. But he said, you know what? He said, it kind of makes sense. I started laughing. And I said, what does your intuition say? He said, well, if I had my way, I'd have 5 kids, but I know her. We're going to have 1. I can just feel it. And he's a 54-year-old man with 1 child. So his intuition did answer for him. I'm not against psychics. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. And I'm not against anything that is trying to help people in one way or another. But we're all psychic. That's another thing. We all have that gift. We all have that ability. Some people don't trust it. It's just like your intuition. You don't trust it either. Intuition says, okay, there's 10 psychics. Which one do you want? My intuition says, take number 2, and everybody else is going, no, take number 5. You know what I mean? So again, I think intuition is our own personal thing. It belongs to us.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with you that we all have those gifts.
Oh yeah.
But we are taught not to trust them from a very early age.
Very good. There's the key word.
Relearn. Yeah, we have to relearn to, trust. And it's interesting you used the phrase trust what you feel. That's a very common phrase that we use in, I'm up-ledger trained in craniosacral therapy.
Yeah.
And so TWYF is, a constant, but to me, I tell folks it's not, to me, that TWYF doesn't only mean, well, a lot of times they'll do it for treat what you find, but to me, it means trust what you feel.
Yep, exactly. Yep. Yeah. And my whole life is based on feelings. Everything I do is with a feeling. This feels good. This feels right. This feels not. And I'll explain. Excuse me. I should have got a glass of water. I have a male golden doodle, and he had 7 puppies with his little girl, and we kept one of the puppies. And one of the things that happened was it came time to where it was time for me to have this little puppy find a home, because it was just a little too much for me to have him and his little son here. So I put it out there that I needed to find a good home, and to the universe, and said, please send me somebody. Well, they sent me 2 or 3 people. And each time my intuition and my feeling inside of myself and listening to my heart's going, nope, nope. And the one person said to me, my daughter said, Mom, that's the perfect family. And I said, no, it's not. We don't have perfection yet. I said, I'm looking for perfection for this little puppy. He's sweet to me, and I've raised him, and I want to give him a really good home. So one day my brother, I hadn't seen my brother in months, shows up at the table. We're having coffee. And I said, I got this little puppy and I need to find him a good home. And he said, oh my gosh, I know exactly where he should go. My best friend's looking for a dog. He lost his dog a month ago and he wants another dog so bad. And he said, it was a black lab and his name was Max. I said, well, interesting. This little boy's name is Max. So it's that knowing and that feeling, keep going, keep going. There's something that will connect, that will show you. And now he has a wonderful little home, and he's very happy little dog now. So we're happy for him too, as well. So again, I trusted my intuition and just kept going through it and kept going, well, if, it doesn't find a home, he's mine, it's going to stay with me. And sure enough, we found a home, and his name was, that man couldn't wait to get him home. As a matter of fact, he was supposed to go for his coffee clutch with his retirees the next morning. He said, oh, no, I'm taking my dog home tonight. He wasn't going to no coffee thing. So it's those kinds of things, that I listen to, and it was, the heart felt so, the heart just opens like a blossoms, like a rose, like a beautiful sunshine, whatever you want to call it, when you know it's so right. That's how you know your intuition's right on. When I keep judging something, or it's wishy-washy, or I'm not sure, that to me is, I need to keep going. I haven't found it yet, and that's what I do. I just keep going till I get there. So it's all worked. It's worked well for me. It's taken me a lot of years to develop it. Sitting still was the hardest thing. I don't sit still well. So learning to sit still and learning to call it in and accept it was the biggest.
Is trying to sit still without falling asleep. That's my problem.
That's why I do it at 6 a.m. when I get up after I've had my coffee.
Your story about the puppy reminds me of last year, in memory of my father. My mother and my 2 sisters who live locally and I decided we were going to go to a local restaurant and have brunch. And at some point I was just going to stand up and say, hey, does anybody in here have a birthday today or this month? And we were going to buy their lunch for them, pick up their tab, whatever it was. And as it happened, I ended up with my back toward the door, and we were towards the back of the room. And for those of you from the Moundsville area, it was Bob's Lunch. And the place was pretty full at the time. And so my mom and my sisters were like, well, you need to say something. I'm like, no, not yet. Nope, not yet. Not yet. And they kept urging me, but people are leaving. I said, it'll fill back up. I'm not worried about it. And the place was maybe half full or so. And we heard, and I had taken a happy birthday balloon in. One of my sisters also showed up with a happy birthday balloon. And we were done eating and about to pay our bill. And I heard a little girl behind me squeal, balloons! And we turned around, and there was a mom and a dad with 2 little girls.
Oh.
So we walked over to them and asked them if they would like to have the 2 happy birthday balloons we had. And it turned out that one of the little girls had just celebrated her birthday a few days prior. So we picked up the tab for that family, but it was just, I couldn't see who was there, but I just knew it wasn't the right time yet to stand up and say anything.
Yeah. you know when it's the right time. You just know. It's
Yeah.
a knowing, and you know when it's right to speak and when it's not right to speak. So I think the best thing though, if you're a counselor or you're a therapist or, and if you're not, but you're talking to family members or your children, your grandchildren or whatever. I'm always teaching my grandchildren all the time. I'll say, no, you tell me. Well, why do I need to tell you? You know, Grandma. I said, no, but I think I need to know more. I need to know better. You tell me, And so they'll go on to explain it all to me. And then they'll go, well, I probably shouldn't have done that, huh? And I'll say, maybe not, and it can be a really tremendous teaching tool for them to trust it and to know it, so I start really young with them, trying to get them to do that, especially since I have 5 great grandchildren now. It's like, the family keeps growing here. So anyway, I try to pass everything I have on to them. If you're a spiritual counselor or you're a psychic or you do any of that kind of work, or you do even just practitioner work like I did, you have a knowing and you need to trust it. And that's the last thing I want to say before we sign off is start learning to trust this, because if you trust it, it gets stronger. That's exactly what happens. People are always coming up to me, oh, you have this essence for intuition. Will that help me find my intuition? I said, well, it will help you, but are you going to be open to it? Are you going to be willing to trust it? Are you going to be willing to use it? Those are the things I'll ask you. And yes, I can tell you that will help that. So I think that's the biggest key. We tend to draw back when we know something. We have a knowing and we go, oh, no, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't tell them that. I should, just like you knew not to do anything until the little girls came in with the balloons. You just sit and wait it out, And I think if we learn to trust it, we'll get there, and it can be an amazing, amazing tool. It really can. It has been for me. So anybody else have any other questions? If not, I'll call it a night.
Well, thank you very much, Alicia. This has really been a fascinating conversation this evening. We really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us. And I'm sure we'll all be working on trying to sit still and learn to listen to our intuition.
That'll be wonderful. I appreciate you asking me, and I hope it has helped you. Feel free to email me, call me. I'm happy to help anybody I can.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good
Hey,
night, everybody.
Jennifer. Hey, Jennifer, how do I know you? This has been bothering me. This is bothering me. I know you.
I'm not sure because I can't see you. So,
No, I know. Do you work somewhere that you can share?
well, I'm self-employed.
Okay.
Nobody wanna
I'm a music therapist.
Oh, yeah.
Recording,
Yes,
Jennifer.
we do. We sang while you played the guitar at OVMC.
Okay, because your voice sounds familiar.
I know. That's how I kept looking at you. She was our music therapist, which we won't forget. That's
Yes.
you. Yes.
Mhm.
I knew it bothered me. I couldn't figure it out. And by the way, I'm fine. So
Oh, good. I'm
the
so glad to
music
hear
must have
that.
worked. Yeah, the music must have worked then.
That's awesome.
Yes. Music is a wonderful gift, let me tell you.
It is indeed.
Thank you,
All right. Well,
ladies.
thank you
Thank
again,
you.
everybody. Everybody, happy Thanksgiving.
Yes,
Yeah,
same to
same to
you. Same to you.
Joyous
Thanks.
holiday season to everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.